What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back to yet another episode of 5 Questions with Levi. This is episode 4 of this return YouTube series, and I'm so glad that the series has been doing very well. Thank you all so much who have been asking questions for all the episodes so far. Keep them coming, and be sure to send in questions in the comments section below for episode 5 next week. But without further ado, we got episode 4 to do, so let's do this, baby! So the first question comes from pretty much a regular of this series, Blaze Life 334. How do you listen to music? Example, Spotify, Pandora, YouTube, etc. I pretty much go all over the place when it comes to listening to music. I either would listen to songs on YouTube, or on Spotify, or on Apple Music, or my massive CD collection, or right here on my computer. So I'm basically all over the place when it comes to how I listen to my music. But the thing that I use the most to listen to music is my iTunes, because I got all my CDs and my Apple Music stuff all on there. So yeah, that's where I basically do most of my listening to music nowadays. So yay! Second question comes from Mr. Death Metal. That actually kind of sounded pretty good, I'll be honest. Did I do good with the growl, Mr. Death Metal? Let me know. Anyways, if you could put together a death metal supergroup consisting of 2 guitarists, 1 bassist, 1 drummer, and a vocalist, who would they be? Gosh, that is such a tough question. That is so difficult. I would say for the 2 guitarists, if we're counting dead musicians, then the 2 guitarists would be Chuck from Death. And the second one, I would actually go with Dan Swano, because I've always wanted to hear how those two would have sounded like if they played on an album together. That would have been amazing. So Dan Swano and Chuck Schuldiner would be my 2 guitarists. Bassist, I would go with Alex Webster from Cannibal Corpse, because he's just a phenomenal bassist. One of the top 5 best bass players in all of metal. Up there with guys like Geezer Butler, Steve Harris, and Cliff Burton. He's up there with those guys. Drummer, there are so many great death metal or metal drummers altogether. But I would probably go with Gene Hoglan, because he is arguably the best metal drummer ever. And I say arguably because it's all opinion, but for me, I would go with Gene Hoglan. For vocalist, now I did do that list of the top 15 death metal vocalists video a few weeks ago. If I wanted to go for a diverse death growl, I would probably go with someone like... Man, this takes me a little bit to think about, but I would probably say... I would actually go with Frank Mullen of Suffocation, because I think when it comes to how deep he can get it without sounding terrible, I think Frank Mullen's a hell of a vocalist. So I would actually go with Frank Mullen from Suffocation. So my 2 guitarists, Chuck Schuldiner and Dan Swano. For bass, it would be Alex Webster. Drummer, it would be Gene Hoglan, and Frank Mullen is my vocalist. This could probably change over time, but right now off the top of my head, that's what I got. The return of my favorite username, Fat Fuck Behind a Burning Asshole. Do you watch any cartoons? If so, which ones do you like as an adult or liked when you were younger? I watch cartoons on occasion, not very much. Basically, as far as like any newer cartoons I watch on my Amazon Prime. I watch any Marvel cartoon, whether it be Ultimate Spider-Man or Avengers Assemble. But I still love me some SpongeBob. I cannot do wrong with SpongeBob. Even the newer stuff may not be as good, but I still enjoy it and get a chuckle here and there. Like that recent episode of My Leg! That was pretty good. Avatar: The Last Airbender arguably is my favorite cartoon of all time, just because the story was so well done. And I have the complete series on DVD back there on that shelf. Children's cartoons that I watched as a kid, and I do have a soft spot for, shows like Blue's Clues, Rugrats. There's so many. As far as adult-oriented cartoons, I like old Family Guy from like season 9 back, or season 8 back actually. No, season 9, because season 9 was the last full season of the show I watched. It's from pretty much that point back. I like me some American Dad. I like the Cleveland Show. But my favorite adult-oriented cartoon is Metalocalypse, because it's so brutal. But yeah, I do like cartoons, though I don't watch them as much as I used to. But yeah. Next question comes from Space Metal Ferrari 248. Top 5 best melodic death metal bands. Strangely enough, melodic death metal is one of the death metal subgenres that I've not listened to a whole lot of, even though I'm a big fan of the genre. I've not listened to a whole lot of bands like, I could say my 5 best mellow death bands. I would say Dissection, even though a lot of people say they're melodic black metal, but to me it was black metal mixed with melodic death metal, and the sound was melodic death metal, vocals were black metal, and the production was black metal. That's basically how I looked at Dissection. So I would say Dissection, At the Gates, Old in Flames. I would also go with Dark Tranquillity. I'm going to save the last one for last, but if I were to do in order of 5 to 1, I would say Dark Tranquillity, Old in Flames, Dissection, At the Gates, but number 1, Carcass. I know they didn't start out melodic, but once you got to their 90s material with Necroticism, and especially Hard Work, and even on Swan Song, very, very much invented melodic death metal, and even with their latest album, Search for Steel, was mind-blowing. And I hope that they have another album come out at some point, because I would love to hear what they've got under their sleeves. So that would be, in my opinion, 5 best melodic death metal bands. Pretty much right there. And the last question for this episode comes from another regular, Daniel Rafael de Jesus. What is your thoughts on As I Lay Dying, the band? Well, I actually have 2 of their albums. I've got Frail Words Collapse and Shadows Are Security. And I think As I Lay Dying, all the Tim Lembestis stuff aside from the conviction in jail and whatever, all that aside, I thought As I Lay Dying was one of the best modern metalcore bands, kind of up there in tandem with Killswitch Engage and that melodic metalcore sound, incorporating that melodic death metal influence, even some thrash influence, some old 80s hardcore influence on top of that. But yeah, I always liked what I heard from As I Lay Dying. I always thought Tim Lembestis was an underrated vocalist in the genre, because he could do the hardcore yells, but he also could do very brutal death growls, and that could be heard on bands, in his other bands like Austrian Death Machine and stuff like that. But yeah, I like As I Lay Dying. I always thought that they were really good, a really talented band. I'm just going to be curious if, since Tim is now out of prison, I wonder if he's going to try and relaunch the band with new members, because the rest of the guys are now in Woven War, and I don't know about them right now, so yeah, I'm going to leave it at that. And that does it for episode number 4 of 5 Questions with Levi. Be sure to send in questions in the comments section below for episode 5. But until then, thank you all so much for watching. Peace out, and I will see you next week.